Hey, 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 I'm Michelle.
And I'm Greta.
We are girlfriends who have always been seekers. We love learning, sharing, and most of all, we love having those soul-to-soul moments with our girlfriends.
Our podcast is about spiritual connection and sisterhood. You are not alone. So grab your glass, get comfy, and join us as we make some noise, light up the room, and
Get into it. Friends, let's get excited because we are interviewing today a dear friend of mine. Her name is Anna Vickroy, and I'll let her get into a bigger introduction. But before we get started, I heard about Anna before she even knew that I existed. And it was really when I first moved to town, there was talk about these confidence campaigns happening. And I really didn't know what it was, but I knew I wanted to go to one. And I heard that a lot of them were based around women standing up, sharing their stories. And what I heard about them was a lot of them were about this sort of like body positivity or body confidence. I didn't really know too much. But I thought, wow, this is incredible. Like there are women that are coming together in restaurants and standing up in front of others and sharing their vulnerabilities. And the woman behind all this was you. And so throughout my time in being of Livermore and finally getting connected to you, you've actually done headshots for me. If anyone has seen my website, all that art is Anna. And I've had the pleasure of working with you personally, growing a friendship with you. And so to have you here today, it's so meaningful. And the topic that we're about to discuss, we haven't talked about this yet on our podcast. And so the level of vulnerability that this is going to bring out for you and for others, we're already like the tears are already coming up. So grab some tissue, my friends, because this may hit you in a very soft spot. But Anna is so lovely and speaks so eloquently. And I just am excited for you to hear her healing journey, really. And so take it away.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that. As I was listening to you, I could just feel your heart and your care, so thank you so much. And yeah, I'm just brought to tears that you see me in this way and can connect to me at this deeper level. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And yes, already
take a tissue.
3 sentences in already, gonna. And just for the people who might be listening, I just want to say, if this is hitting a tender spot for you, take the time to take care of yourself. If you need to hit pause, take a breath, get some water, go outside, put your feet in the ground, do what you need to do to take care of yourself, and then come back to this when you feel more resourced. Because we don't have to, we're so used to pushing ourselves through hard things. And I've learned that we don't have to just push ourselves with so much force. Mm-hmm. We can do things a little bit more gently, and it's actually more supportive in the healing journey. So
thank you.
Even my nose is blowing.
That just gave me chills when you
that.
said that, because we are so harsh with our bodies and our souls. So thank you for that permission to be gentle.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, because I was not gentle with my body. Just to share like a quick little synopsis of my story and how I got to the Confidence Campaign, and even have grown so much more since the Confidence Campaign. I'll just share a real tidbit, and you can ask questions if you like. But growing up, I was always at war with my body. My body was never enough. I'm mixed race. My dad's white. And just even having darker skin, my dad said he wanted an all-American girl. And I look in the mirror, I'm like, I think all-American girl. It's like Barbie, I'm like, okay, I'm short, I'm round, I have brown skin, brown hair. Like already, I just felt like I would not be enough. And, always battled with my body shape. My first diet when I was like 12, I think, when my dad bought me Nutrisystem, the freeze-dried packets for Christmas. That was the big Christmas gift. And I was excited because I thought, finally, this is the solution to all my problems. Once I lose weight, then, I'll be able to make friends and people love me. My dad will love me and, I'll feel better in life. And so I battled with my body for decades, did all the diets. I even had liposuction when I was in college. I wanted a thigh gap. Like I was fit for my body type in college. I think I was a size 10, 12 or something like that. I rode my mountain bike. I could keep up with the guys on my mountain bike. And I was super athletic, but I had these big chunky thighs. And I'm like, I'm fat. I need the thigh gap. So I had liposuction, to get the thigh gap. And I didn't even tell my husband that I had done this until like just the past few years. I didn't tell my roommates in college that I had liposuction. And so there was just a lot of shame around my body that I kept hidden. I just kept doing the diet and doing my best to try to achieve that normal body, that quote unquote normal body. And then, as a photographer, so I owned Ultraspective Photography for, I think it was about 15 years. And through that journey, I photographed thousands of women, literally thousands of women, most of them, many of them in various states of undress. And so, very intimate types of photo shoots. And
you had that beautiful boudoir set up in your studio. Yeah. So these women would come in and take these gorgeous pictures. Yeah.
The boudoir photos.
Yeah.
And what I started to notice, the pattern is like, it didn't really matter how beautiful the woman was, according to, the standards of beauty in our culture. Everyone had these feelings of not enough or insecure. And actually, one thing I did notice was like the more a woman was aligned to those beauty standards, the more anxiety she had around it because she'd been told her whole life, you're so beautiful, you're so beautiful. And so her worth becomes ingrained with beauty. And as you know, our bodies are meant to change and age and, and that's normal. And so there's so much pressure to maintain that beauty. And so that's really what sparked my own, that along with my son. I think he was in the 4th grade elementary school, came home from school one day and said he felt like he was not enough, and I said all the things that any parent would say. Everyone's unique. You have to embrace your uniqueness. And I'm saying these words that were like totally hollow in my own heart. Like I couldn't even walk that walk myself. How can I expect him to do it? And I know that kids learn based on what we do, not what we say. So I knew I had to figure out how to like walk that walk. So those were kind of the things that were happening for me that sparked my journey to heal my relationship with my body. And it started off with, my body image. How did I see my body? And what I found out through that journey was it's not so much about trying to convince yourself that you're beautiful, but it's more about relating to your body in a way where you can be curious about it, have compassion, and to just really soften and have acceptance and release control. And it's in the process of building a relationship, just like when you build a relationship with another person, right? Like you want to get to know them, why they do the things they do, what makes them tick. It's the same thing in relating to the body, but we're so conditioned to dominate our body, to make it try and fit in this box of what is normal. And it's through that journey that I healed my relationship with my body. And healing your relationship with your body doesn't necessarily mean that you believe your body is beautiful all the time. Yeah. So there's so much nuance
Right. That's
in there.
Body positivity versus body neutrality. Is that that's the term I've been hearing lately. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting because it's taking away the image stuff, the control stuff, and it's bringing it to a neutral place and seeing it, your body almost as like your friend and being able to nurture it, give it love and support.
Right.
Not looking at it as something that, you're constantly trying to
manipulate.
Yes.
Yeah. So Anna, you said something on one of your podcasts, because you've got a few podcasts out there, which is amazing. And actually you were one of the inspirations for me to want to go forward with Greta and do this podcast. And so you kind of gave us the tips to get us started. So I want to give you a thank you.
Thank you for that, because it was very overwhelming.
Yes.
Scary in the beginning.
Yes. And so you're just wonderful in so many ways. But you said something on one of your podcasts, and it aligns with what you're talking about now, about this feeling of being aligned and being able to connect with your body. So not so much about like, gosh, I look so beautiful and I could be on the cover of Vogue kind of thing, but it was more of, what do I even feel in my body? Like if I'm getting to know my body and I'm getting curious in my body and about my body in that relational way, how then can I be so in tune to when my body doesn't feel good? I mean, you said something even when you stepped in here. We were looking at your hair and it's like, let's fix your hair. And you're like, hey, like if my hair wants to go in that direction today, this is just what it wants to do. But to accept that and go, it's okay that right now, this is how I'm feeling. And let me really sink into that and ask more about to my body, what else do I need right now? Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, when we get so caught up on the looks and that Barbie image, we're completely disconnecting from the feelings that we're having. And we're so wanting to please or have that control, or it's all exterior bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all, when we're so fixated on the way that our body looks, it's external, right? And it's processed mentally of like, what does it look like? Mm-hmm. And a lot of that judgment of what it looks like externally creates discomfort in the body, contraction, shame, and that's really uncomfortable to be with in the body. And so I have a lot of compassion for people who, I mean, because I lived the first 4 decades of my life stuck in my head, disconnected from my body, because it was too uncomfortable to connect to my body. The shame, the grief, the anger that is stored in the body, you know, the trauma. Some people don't understand the word trauma, so I'll just say stored stress that lives in the body. It's so uncomfortable. And so it makes sense that we disconnect from our body. So I also don't want to like shame anyone for feeling, oh yeah, I live in my head, I'm disconnected from my body, therefore I'm doing it wrong or I'm bad. It's a survival mechanism for us to be able to not feel that, because I didn't have the capacity to be with that discomfort. And that's why I think that trauma healing, the journey of healing your trauma and learning how to work with your nervous system to start to be able to process stress first in real time, and then to learn how to, process the stored stress. That is a key component of really being able to, like what you were saying, Greta, like be more in that acceptance of just, I don't know. I don't remember if we were saying it in this podcast or saying it before, but we were talking a lot about control.
Yes.
Right. A lot of that
accepting
drive,
what is.
Yeah. A lot of that drive for control is because the body is just so contracted and in a state of survival. And we feel like we need to have that sense of control in order to literally survive. Our mind knows difference, but our body doesn't know. And as you know, as a certified hypnotherapist, our subconscious mind is basically our body. It acts through our body. And that's the program that runs most of our conscious thought. So we think we have free choice, but if we're not connected to our body, I question how much free choice do we really have?
Right. We're just operating off of conditions and belief systems. And I think that's a big piece of this too. I mean, as a body worker, even putting my hands on people and feeling what is stored there through massage therapy work. I mean, there are moments where you touch somebody in a specific area and all of a sudden just tears are shed. And it's like, what is that connected to, right? And so much of that holding that you talked about and that constricting is not allowing us to even get into the space of we don't know how to release. We don't know. And that's something else that I think I've watched you do, Anna, throughout the years, is that you have these retreats, you do a lot of body work also with women where you get them to release and let go. So that control, that constriction, all those things we're talking about. So it's not just about like, oh, look at this woman, she's went through all this healing and now she feels like that model. It's like, I actually feel freedom now. I feel like I can move with ease in my body. I can breathe. One thing I pay attention to a lot as a yoga instructor is breath. And when you're watching people, nobody wants to feel, I shouldn't say nobody because that's a very absolute kind of word, but most people do not want to fill their bellies with air because we have been told to suck that in and pushing that out. Okay, that's fat, right? That's when we get to see the fat. And so there's so much programming
from an
early
right?
age.
I just want to rub my belly right now, like for all those decades of sucking it in.
Yes. And I don't even like to touch mine because it is one of my sources of insecurities. I mean, my husband loves to touch my belly. And a lot of times I'm like, please, there's 1,000 other places you can touch here. Why do you go there? But what I have to ask myself is, why is it so hard for me to allow him to go there? That's really what I should be exploring. And I will as a result of this talk.
Yeah. Embrace the belly as it is.
As it is.
I struggle with that
hard.
too. I struggle with that too. I mean, I received that message when I was a kid. I remember being in my bathing suit and hearing adults say, like, you can like use your muscles and tighten them. And because I probably was walking around with a pot belly. There's actually plenty of pictures of me doing that as a kid. But like, how freeing to be that kid again. That's just like breathing freely, not feeling that you have to constrict all the time.
It's so hard, but I that's one of the big points I guess I wanted to make is that I think we're in this space, and that's what you were doing with your confidence campaign, is shifting this thought process and changing, because you are a princess. She's holding a princess pillow. She didn't know it until she flipped it over. And it is this feeling that, we need to work a little bit more on this. I mean, we're definitely seeing more ads come out where you see women of all different shapes, sizes, colors, it's shifting. But beauty is still very much equated to, looks and thinness,
I think
right?
more than ever right now, what kids are having to see on social media and compare themselves to. And it's a big problem. I think we've taken many steps backwards in that area because they're just bombarded. I mean, they want to follow all these influencers and they feel like they should look like that person.
Right.
That's constantly taking, photos, and who knows, maybe they're not eating. Maybe it's been doctored. We don't know, but it's just so sad to me that that's what teenage girls, especially the suicide rates have gone up dramatically because of that. So you're doing important work that I think is really necessary.
Media is such a big component it's really a big driver of what keeps the body image trauma reinforced. Because even if we go on our own journey to, look at our subconscious beliefs about our body and do our own body image healing, the reality is we still live in a world where we are being judged based on what we look like. So even if we do our own healing work, we still live in a society where we could possibly not get jobs because of the way that we look. Like, it impacts real life. It's not just this funny, nonsensical thing. It's real life. And so that's why I feel like it's really important to learn how to deal with stress and trauma, because even though I feel so much more freedom in my body and just released control over, the hair or whatever, there's still the reality that I have to go out into the world and knowing that people are judging me. And some of those people may be in positions of power that then have impact over my life. Mm-hmm. So for example, I used to have long hair. I recently cut my hair because I was noticing how when I had bad hair days, I felt like not good. I don't know if I can curse on your
like shit.
Yes, you can. It's an explicit one. We put the warning out to everybody.
And I really started to really sit with that feeling in the pit of my stomach of like, why am I so uncomfortable? Why do I feel so bad when my hair is a mess or oily or, not perfect? And part of it was the judgment that other people, and like, you can't go to work like that. You can't look like a professional and have like dirty, messy hair, right? So I'm like, I'm just going to cut it off because it doesn't bring me joy. Like for some people, it brings them joy to do all the hair, to blow dry it, to curl it and all of that. Like if that brings you joy, that's awesome. It did not bring me joy. So yeah, I like shaved it off. And it was really interesting, the comments that I got. Yeah, there were a couple comments that were like, well, before they even asked what I thought, what does your husband think? Yeah, I had to do a little education there. Like, I do not exist just for the pleasure of my husband.
Right.
And we are a partnership, like my exterior does not exist solely to please him. Right?
That patriarchy ideal.
Gosh, right. Okay. Yeah. So there was that. And then there'd be comments like, oh yeah, you totally pull it off. But my face is so round. I can't do that. And I'm looking in like, my face is round too. Like, who says you can't do that? And oh, like, you're so brave to do that. Like, why am I brave? Well, I'm brave because people are still judging me based on my hair, but this is just easier to maintain. So when I don't have the time to do it, it doesn't look as messy. Right. So it fits my lifestyle better. But yeah.
And your decision was based on bringing more joy into your life.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
So, okay, you had these moments that were pivotal for you, and then you went on this healing journey. And so what are some of the things that you did? Because I know you more, Anna, now, who, is this, when I look at you and when I interact with you, I'm like, oh, she's so grounded. I feel so relaxed.
We were both of us had kind of stressful mornings, and Michelle was like, oh no, it's okay, because Anna's going to come in and she has this great grounding energy, calming energy. I'm like, yes, that's what I need this morning.
Totally. And I know from earlier podcasts that you've done also that you're like, hey, I was not always this way.
I was a real bitch. Straight up. Yeah.
So how do we get to like this Anna mode? Like what did you do? She's breathing.
There's I'm just like feeling into that because there's so much depth there. And so I just want to take a moment just to feel what really wants to be present in this moment. And the way you asked the question was like, what did I do? Right. And I could answer the question of like, oh yeah, meditation, breath work, sound healing, cold baths, I could list off all these things to do. But what I really want to say is that I learned how to be with what is in the present moment. Like you were talking earlier about like releasing all these things. And I feel like sometimes when we focus so much on the healing or the release, we're approaching it with the same energy, the same constricted survival energy of needing us to change, of trying to control us. Like in the beginning of my healing journey, it was like the meditation and the breath work. And I was approaching it from this very, I'm wrong, I'm bad, I need to fix this, so I'm going to do these things. I was doing this with this energy. My nervous system still didn't have the capacity. I was still doing it with this fight energy, with the survival energy. It was maintaining this constriction that then made it hard to release. When I let go of trying to change, trying to heal even, and just learned how to be with myself, like all the uncomfortable feelings behind what was driving my food binging, the things that was driving my addiction to my cell phone, the things that was driving my workaholicness, because that was one of my numbing or distracting mechanisms, was just to throw myself into work. And that's a very societal acceptable thing to do, because on the outside, you're very successful and you're rewarded for that. But I was really just distracting myself from the discomfort that I felt.
Which I do want to stop there for just a quick second, because I think it's interesting for our friends who are listening to know that you were an engineer. You came from a very logical type of thinking background. And now I think if people listen to you, they might think, oh, wow, she's this kind of spiritual woo-woo kind of lady. That's what I love, I think, so much about you, in addition to everything else, is you've got this balance going on where, you've come from this background. Your brain still might function very logically in certain ways, but yet you've had all these experiences and these releases that have allowed you to move into this other place And so the fact that you are all parts of all of these things, to me, just make you even more of a holistic individual. And your message to me, somebody also coming from like a legal background and very rules and regulations and professionalism and all those things, I always fought with this idea of, oh, well, if I start getting into this world of wellness and I start telling people that I do things like Reiki and stuff like that, they're not going to take me as seriously anymore. And so as I'm listening to you speak, and I think as our friends are hearing your message, and it doesn't matter, right? Like our titles don't even matter, but in this world, in this society, they kind of do. And so for people to really know all the parts of you, and there's so many more that I know we can't even get into, we'd be talking for like hours and hours, but I just think it's very interesting. And it's something I do want to highlight because there are still individuals that might hear what you're saying. And that's why I even asked the question, I think like, well, what did you do? Because that's the big question I even get as a practitioner. What can I do? Give me the steps. I want the list of things to get there, right?
To-do list.
Yes. And so I just thought it was really important to emphasize this is all of who Anna is, right?
She's a dynamic, educated, intelligent woman who has also found this spiritual practice that's helped her.
Absolutely.
And I didn't start off like trying to find this spiritual practice. And actually, I resisted it for a very long time. And I still like, even to say like I'm a spiritual person, that there's still, some subconscious belief within me that feels a bit unsafe saying, wow. Because like you said, I have 3 degrees in engineering, very logical minded, very practical, rooted in science and reality. And what would happen was as I was going through my journey and I would experience this. It's so hard to put to language, the sensation of it, but I would experience this shift, this lightness and this sense of peace, various steps throughout my healing journey. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? What just happened? And so my logical mind had to I got to figure this out. I got to dive into the science, and that's why I became the certified hypnotherapist, because I wanted to learn all about the subconscious mind. That's why I learned about somatics and mind-body therapy, because I really wanted to understand what's happening when we place our attention to parts within our body, because where we place our focus, where we place our attention is where we place our energy. And that's what allows things to move and to flow and to unlock that have been trapped there for so long. So it just really became, that's why I got certified in all of these things. And as I started going down this rabbit hole of really feeling into places that you can't necessarily see and having these deeper experiences that are hard to put to words, I couldn't deny its existence anymore, that there is something more than, just this flesh and blood here. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why I feel like, body image for me is like the gateway into finding that peace within, because it's really hard to connect to a body when you're just dominating it, trying to control it, and hold so much shame just about the way that it looks. And so I feel like it's like step 1, just trying to release some of that.
And how much that's so time consuming. I mean, how many women are out there in the world focusing so much money, energy, time to not aging, staying skinny, their hair. I mean, I'm guilty of a lot of this. All of these things are really limiting the joy and energy that could be going elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why this is so powerful to talk about, because it's just, it's wasted time. It's our time here that's so limited. We only have so much of it.
Yeah, I hear you in that. And that really touches me about, how much energy is spent on trying to adhere to these norms, when if we could liberate ourselves from trying to adhere to those norms, knowing that we're enough just as we are. Like my heart bursts just thinking about what we could create on this earth, how we could live together in community. So for me, body image is so much more than just believing that you're beautiful. I mean, I believe it really is one of the first steps to bringing peace on earth. And people laugh at me when I say that, but I truly feel that in my heart. Yeah.
You also talked about this on another podcast where once you stepped into this space of acceptance and really looking at your body for everything that it does for you, you can now adorn it and you can throw on beautiful earrings and you can pick out fabrics that feel good. And you can now look at it as this, I will say the word beautiful in this context, because you feel good.
Yeah. And there's so much nuance in what you're saying too, right? And it can be hard to kind of break down some of that nuance, because when we're disconnected from our body, it can be hard to discern what actually feels good, because does it feel good here or does it actually feel good in our body?
Yeah, like I'll tell you right now, these jeans I put on do not feel good. I'm like, where are my stretchy pants? I want them right now.
Love my Lulus.
Yes.
Oh, sometimes my Lulus don't feel good either. Maybe I need a bigger size. They're like cutting off circulation.
Yeah. So whether it like physically doesn't feel good, or maybe there's like a sensation of constriction around, maybe it's shame or grief because we don't have the long hair. I want to just, since we talked about the hair, I'm just going to keep coming back to the hair, And so when we're doing whatever it is to help ourselves feel better, that feels better, but there's still this shame or grief that's beneath this constriction in the body. So my invitation, usually like when I'm working with my clients, it's a journey of inviting in curiosity into the body to explore. It's not about, oh yeah, you got to stop trying to control your hair. You got to stop trying to control your body. You got to do that. Like that is not the way to approach it, because that's just approaching it from the same dominating.
Yeah, it's still control.
Yeah, exactly.
It's some aspect.
Yeah. So it really is just about inviting in curiosity behind the things, behind the surface things. Because like when I got the liposuction, that made me, I would say back then, that made me happy. Right. But I was disconnected. It did make me happy in the way that it allowed me to survive in a way that I thought I needed to. For me, getting the liposuction, from this perspective now, it was a matter of life and death. If I didn't have the thigh gap, I was not enough. I was never going to get a husband. I was always going to be the fat one because I was teased so much for being fat. Like it was a matter of life and death. I wouldn't have said that back then. Back then, I would have just said, oh yeah, this is going to make me happy. But survival is happiness. Like there is no shame in surviving. So I'm not saying this because, one is better than the other. When you tend to live mostly in your head and somewhat disconnected from the body, what do you feel in your body when you're feeling that happiness? Like maybe, you're feeling that sense of happiness, but your body is actually constricted. So that happiness is more related to like survival rather than actually like thriving and feeling fully alive. So there's just a lot of nuance there. And I just really like to invite people in through a place of curiosity, because it's when we can be curious that we can relax into it. When we go into it expecting a certain outcome, that's when there's this expectation and this constriction. But if we go in with a curiosity, and no matter what we find, we'll figure out a way to maneuver around that, be with that, relate to that, then we can kind of let our shoulders come down. We can kind of relax around it a little bit. And that's what allows us to explore what is there. And then maybe that message that we got when we were 5 years old about, running around in a bikini on the beach and, an ant comes by and pinches your belly, comes up to the surface to like, that, oh, is there something wrong with my belly? And that can be released. And it's not even a mental thing. You may not even remember that actual memory, but it just might be.
I have been consciously trying to stick my belly out for this entire conversation. So I'm exploring, I'm doing what you're saying. As you were talking about this, I just was thinking about all the women out there that maybe look like the perfect image society has put out there. They're checking all the boxes to try to meet that expectation in the world. And I often think it doesn't equate to happiness. so many of those women are, maybe they're not eating, maybe they're really sad. They're trying to use that outer image to hide in a way. Maybe if I look perfect and I'm a size 2 and I have the long hair and perfect skin or whatever it is, maybe they won't see all the other stuff that's in there. I mean, I do feel like they're usually sad, more sad than others. I mean, I've met plenty of people who don't fit into that image, and they are full of joy, and they're experiencing life to the fullest.
Yeah.
So it doesn't equate happy being perfect.
Yeah. There'll be like moments of like, oh, I like this.
Yeah.
Now I feel, now I got whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very short lived. And then the shame or the grief or this pain or the sadness still lives within here. And so you need another way to make yourself feel better. And, adhering to the beauty standard is it's one method of survival, because the more that we can align to that normal, beauty standard, the more that people like us, we're accepted, it just makes it easier to survive.
I love how you broke that down, because I've heard that, and obviously in the world of hypnotherapy, we're constantly talking about fight or flight and, the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, but we don't always think about it in more like what we would define as stressful situations. So you're going through a divorce, you had a death in your family, something like that. But when you're looking at anxiety and just these feelings, this energy that's moving through your body, and you're really equating it to a survival, I'm thinking about all the friends who have been on dating apps. And we just interviewed someone recently who was talking about a little bit about the world of dating online. And really, as being married for so long, I don't really understand this world at all, because I haven't had to be in it, right? But what I'm thinking is, without people even being aware of it, that is really that mode that they're in, is this fight or flight mode. And, the survival mode of, am I going to find a partner? Am I going to find someone to love me? And so as all this energy is even going into what it means to date or my appearance, because I'm trying to find somebody, that really is that survival mechanism kicking in.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like it's so important to broach all of this with compassion. That's why I say it's like you have to start with curiosity and also compassion, because there is no freaking shame in surviving. Our culture is so hard to live in. It's so oppressive. And whatever mechanism that we have figured out to survive, there should be no shame in that. Mm-hmm. So I know I feel like I've said this before, but I just want to say it again for someone who's listening and is like, oh my God, that's me. And then you feel bad. Like you feel shame for feeling shame. Like, let's just fucking stop the shame cycle, because that's what keeps the constriction. That's what doesn't feel good in here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I remember being in high school and always wanted to be part of all the like group therapy type things. And I didn't really have, I've got stuff, everyone has their childhood stories, right? And like what they've went through, but I didn't have any super significant heavy traumas, as we would define that, in terms of I had my, whatever I define as trauma for myself. But I remember just feeling so connected and loved and I belonged whenever I was in groups of women who were sharing all their vulnerabilities. And so whether that had to do around body or molestation or abuse in different ways, when women really got together, girls, because we were teenagers at the time, but anytime there was an opportunity to be in that kind of setting, it just felt so authentic and natural and good. Like it felt joyful throughout all the sorrows and all the things, the hurt that was coming up. There was still this feeling of connection. And it really was because, people weren't putting all this effort into, oh, I'm going to group therapy today. I'm going to do my hair, or I'm going to, wear the cutest outfit. It didn't matter. We just showed up to be together. That was the intention. And so it's bringing me back to a little bit of what we already talked about. But again, when it comes to survival and feeling like you have community and people around you that you connect with, for me, like I'm really exploring right now and I'm going, whoa, that was always part of, I think, my survival mechanism was to be surrounded by my sisters. You know, even if I didn't know them, it was like, oh, I've got this circle of people around me and we're all here for whatever reason. Our experiences all look different, but it doesn't matter. Like I can get through my day or my week or my, month because I've got these women that I can come and gather with.
That's so beautiful. That is just so beautiful. There's so much wisdom that comes through in what you just shared. Because when we come together intentionally, like you were saying, just to be with each other, not trying to put on a performance, like when you talk about being vulnerable with each other, we can kind of take off this mask and just share what's really on our hearts, what we're really feeling. That's what allows some of that energy to move through, some of that stress, some of those emotions to move through, so you don't have to hold it in by yourself. And when you're with another person, our nervous systems, our bodies are communicating with each other. We don't even have to think about it, And so when you're coming together intentionally just to be with each other, the body feels safer. And that's what allows some of the relaxation to happen nervous system wise. And that is also a contribution that allows the energy to flow through the release that you're talking about. Yeah. So being in a community where that is intentional, where you do feel like you can be yourself and you do feel like you're seen for who you are and supported in that. Oh, there's so much healing in that. And I feel like, you asked me a question earlier, like, what would I do? Or, as part of my healing journey. And I want to say being in community. Once I found circles of women to be in community with that kind of intentional, safer space to be in, that was really where some of the deeper healing happened. Because a lot of the wounds that we hold within, like the shame and whatnot, it happened in relation to someone else because someone said something to us or someone did something to us. And so we can do a certain amount of tending to that by ourselves, but to create the new neural pathways to relate to other people, especially women, in a safer way, in a more healthy way, we need these containers, because otherwise we're creating all these neural connections like, okay, I feel good if I'm meditating and I'm all by myself. But then you go out into the world and you're like, oop, clammed up again, because you don't know how to be yourself in relation, because you haven't made those new neural connections yet. And there's still that stored energy when so-and-so said something to you.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's so important what you started, bringing women together to talk about some of their most vulnerable feelings about themselves. There is so much power in that, and it builds confidence and connects women, and they don't feel alone now because, I have these insecurities too. Everybody must be feeling like that. Even, someone you might consider, wow, they look like they've got it all together. For them to stand up and share and be vulnerable, and now you're just all on the same sisterhood together.
Yeah. We're all human beings doing the best that we can.
So tell us a little bit, in talking about community and all of this, wanting me to ask you more about your retreats that you do, because you started with, confidence campaigns. You're always bringing women together in different circles. And now you're doing retreats, like some really cool ones in Hawaii and Joshua Tree and some awesome stuff.
Yeah, and I've been doing the retreats since I think 2017, and they've evolved over time. And I think they were called Awaken Your Goddess first. Now it's Awaken to Your Body, whatever it's called. It really is just about creating a container for women to reconnect to their bodies, to themselves. And that can feel really uncomfortable in the beginning. So there's a little bit of titration that happens in the beginning, and really just trying to intermix that with just having fun. Like, who can not enjoy Hawaii? Right? I have a special calling to the islands, and yeah, being close to the ocean, I just feel super grounded there. The volcano on the big island. We usually hike across the crater of Kilauea Iki, this small Kilauea crater, and do a meditation in the crater. And there's just, I mean, it's so close to the earth. Like, earth is born there. It's such a magical place. And so, going on this retreat with this intention of connecting to ourselves as well as connecting to each other and connecting to the earth, because we are always supported. We feel like we're alone. Our culture conditions us to be ultra independent, do it all alone. And if you need someone, then you're weak or whatever. But that conditioning is meant to keep us weak and to keep us separated. Like, we weren't meant to do life alone. We were meant to do it in community and supported by the earth. And I believe that this is something that's relatively new. Even saying this out loud is, again, like the whole spiritual thing. But connecting to the earth is an important part of the journey because it sustains us. Like, when we release control, when we allow ourselves to be with what is, the earth is such an important component of that because the earth is sustaining us.
Yeah. And it's funny that you said that about spirituality and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm getting to the point now where I think it's fucking crazy that we've lost this. Yeah. Like, right now, my cycle is just starting to connect with the moon and I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm like reconnecting with the earth, and we all should be connected. Yeah. The animals don't question it. Why are we? We think we're better than that,
Right.
So,
yep. That's all under the umbrella of colonization, which the opposite of that are the indigenous ways of being. We lived on the earth. And the indigenous people had relationship to their body. They had relationship to the earth. They had relationship with each other. And they had rituals and ways of being and dances and song that, like, when you look at neuroscience now and like some of these techniques and tools to like move stress through, the indigenous people would do that, playing the drums and dancing on the ground and stomping your feet and singing and all that. Like, that was the natural way that we just instinctively knew of how to move stress through our body.
Yeah, we've talked about this many times. When my dog has another dog come up, bark at her, she shakes it off. And it's like, we probably used to do that too. Now we just tense up if someone, crosses us.
And shove it down. Yep. And push through, push forward. Yep. That's why I said at the beginning of this podcast, if this is too activating, take a break, go back, shake it off, do what you need to do, and then come back when you are more grounded. Because, we don't have to push through the discomfort.
Let it move through your body instead of storing it somewhere.
Right. Yeah. The dog example is brilliant. I learned, my family adopted a dog at the beginning of COVID, Charlie. We're all just so in love with him, and he's taught me just so much. But when there's a threat, he tenses up, the hair on the back goes up, and bark, threat is gone. Then he like shakes it off. Sometimes he does the triple down.
Yeah.
Sometimes he does like these squeals, like these vocal squeals, like release that
anxiety. Yeah.
Like, he just knows instinctively. He's not saying, "Oh, I'm going to release this stress. I better do this." But we're just so disconnected from these natural ways of being. That's why I believe when we reconnect to the body, we will start to find those impulses within us and know what to do. That's why I don't prescribe. Maybe in the beginning, there's some, try this, in terms of techniques to like move stress through. But ultimately, the goal is to get people to connect with their own body, to see how that impulse wants to naturally move through. Yeah. So it's not about, okay, I'm just always going to do this prescriptive thing, because again, that's kind of dominating the body and telling the body what to do. The body has its own wisdom and it wants to move through. We just have to get out of its freaking way.
I've been struggling with the start of the year. It's like, I'm going to have a good regimen of getting up, doing yoga, meditating, But then I think what happens is sometimes you wake up and you've got cramps or whatever is going on, or you didn't get sleep the night before, and your body is saying, I don't need to get up at, 5:30, 6 a.m. I need to rest. And so I kind of have been trying to figure that balancing act out. I'm listening to my body. I need to rest, but then I want to be good for my body, and I don't want to beat myself up when I miss those days.
That's a tough one. Yeah. The journey to really listening to the body can be challenging because, you know, the guilt that you feel when you don't work out, you know, can, you know, I would say to just get curious about what's beneath that guilt. Is there a belief in there that says you're lesser than or not enough, or you're going to lose control or become fat? Like that's the worst thing in the world to become.
Mine
right?
is definitely a promise that I made to myself and I'm not keeping it. And I want to be that person that's consistent, and I struggle with being consistent. So, but I also want to honor my body at the same time.
Yeah. There's a lot to,
I know.
a lot to get curious about there. Yeah.
I love that you just say to get curious. And, you know, maybe that's what I'll do. I'll just start asking myself those questions, because I do think there's a fine line then too between, oh, I need to like let myself sleep in. And then you're doing that, you know, the rest of the week. And now you're not in a good routine, that then your mind is, you know, not in a healthy place because
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah. Yep. That's real also, because we know that movement is good for our body and for our health. And sometimes our body may be in a place, like there was definitely a season in my healing journey where I just had to stop moving. And that had more to do with healing my, I don't want to use the word toxic because I feel like it's overused, but my unhealthy relationship with exercise. Because for me, exercise, my relationship growing up with exercise was that it was to punish me for what I ate. It was to punish my body so that I can get thinner. My relationship with movement was all about trying to change my body. So I had to just completely stop exercise for a while in order to really sit with that energy and that belief that was underneath my relationship with exercise. And then I had to titrate back into movement slowly. You know, like, oh, it does feel good to stretch.
In a gentle way. Yeah.
Yeah. And particularly for people who know, you know, they have PTSD or trauma, aggressive exercise can contribute to, you know, the anxiety and because of the adrenaline and whatnot. So sometimes gentle movement might be a better way to start. Yeah. So there's just so much nuance and things to discover when you get curious about, you know, like what's behind the commitment to I don't know if it's move every day or have your routine every day. You know, maybe it's doing some sort of movement.
Routine.
Yeah. Yeah. And our relationship to rest too. You know, that coincided with my season of just needing rest, because after living in an adrenalized state, basically for decades, I would yo-yo between anxiety, and that's when I would push, and achieve, and then go into depression because I can't sustain that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I go into depression and I just don't want to get out of bed, living in this like yo-yo cycle, you know, with the dieting and everything for decades. I just needed to freaking rest for a year.
And to allow yourself to have that, to nurture your body in that way. And so many people have such a hard time with that.
Yeah.
They think they're lazy and they have all this negative self-talk around if they just give themselves that moment. Or I feel like a lot of people get on the phone as a way to de-stress, but then that has its other negative side effects. So you're not really relaxing.
It's funny because as I'm listening to you guys talk about the exercise piece too. So I do my little piece of exercise every morning, and it's either 5 minutes to 10 minutes on a trampoline, or I sit on my vibration plate for about 10 minutes. And I might do a little booty workout. Everything's about 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah. And, you know, when I tell people that, they're like, oh, that's it? Like you're only working out for 15 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm bored after that. Like, why do I don't want to be in a gym for 3 hours. Like going back to joy, that does not bring me happiness. Walking with my girlfriend, Greta, and I used to spend lots of time walking for hours and hours, talking,
keep going,
you know, and that brought joy. And so it's funny how also I think a lot of people end up putting so many expectations around the outcome. And as I was hearing you say, exercise for you equaled to get skinny, or a punishment of, oh, I ate this, I got to do this, right? But the gentle movement or starting something like that doesn't equal skinny, or that doesn't equal a punishment. That equals, oh, this actually feels good to stretch my arm out this way. So I don't know. I just think for people listening also that we got to just stop being so hard on ourselves. That's like just number one. Like, give yourself grace. If you need a whole week to sleep, and you can, fucking give yourself a week to sleep and just allow yourself to do that. And then pick it up and start gently. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And I know I will admit, like, I don't have an extreme personality. So for me, I don't have a problem with, oh, I got to go all in or nothing. Like, I'll tiptoe in and whether the results are there or not, fuck it. I'll try something else next time, but that's just how I'm wired. And I know I live with some people, and I know there are many friends of mine who that's very hard for them to put just the 5 minutes in, because they equate that to failure, or it's not enough. That whole back to where we started, right? It's not enough. So I guess for the listeners, for me, what I want to share with them is that you are enough. Okay. You're freaking enough that you're listening to this. Yes. You're enough that, like, here goes my heart. The tears are flowing, but you are enough just the way you are. And if you think that there's more, go ahead and try it. Get curious, like we're talking about. See what else might be out there for you, but check in with yourself. And if it's not the right thing, don't put that pressure. You said, Greta, like, we have so many breaths left in our body. Like, how are we going to spend that time that we're here? So just evaluate. I think I'd love to end it with this idea of curiosity. If this even gave you a little something to think about, get curious about that thought. Whatever came up for you, just take a moment in the solitude of your own, wherever you are. But know that there's community of women out there also who are willing and ready to receive you the way that you are in this moment, whether it's at one of the retreats that any of us here on this podcast offer up, whether it's your neighbor, who you see sitting on her porch every day, and you might just need 5 minutes of her time to talk to you about what's coming up for you. There are people out there who want to love and support. And so get curious, know that the earth is here, like, put your feet down on the grass and just feel into that for a moment. Just stop and feel it.
Yeah. Such a great way to end. And just want to echo that you are enough. And also just say that you are not broken. Like, what we're experiencing, what we might judge as broken, is actually a very normal response to living in this fucked up culture. It's the culture that's broken.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. We are not broken.
Yes.
So I have so much love and compassion for each living being, not just humans, but the animals and the planet, for all that we're enduring just to try to survive in this world. So yeah, if there was something in here that triggered you or, made you feel a certain way, just inviting in that curiosity and compassion, and, and I am open to conversation if anyone wants to reach out to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anna.
You're welcome.
I say just date yourself. Get to know your body. Get curious about your beautiful body.
Love that.
You've got one. You should love it. And watch what it'll do for you when you give it love and you nourish it and good vibes. Yes. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you, Greta. It's my pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you liked what you heard and we're your girls,
please share and add a review on iTunes so we can continue to grow our circle. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at That's My Girl Podcast.